Hello, hello, listeners of Align with Your Dharma. I am so glad um, for this Friday evening that I get to talk to this wonderful individual, gifted individual. I attended his masterclass and I was like in awe the content he provided. So all the listeners out there, I'm sure you will get one or two or three or maybe 10 or, thousands of nuggets, golden nuggets that my guest is going to share today. So who am I talking about? I am talking about Brenden Kumarasamy, who is the founder of MasterTalk. He coaches ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become the top 1% communicators in their industry. He also has a popular YouTube channel called MasterTalk with the goal, he says, of providing free access to communication tools for everyone in the world. How beautiful! How beautiful! And without further ado, welcome, Brenden. I'm a little nervous, but but I am so excited to talk to you. Thank
Y-
you for coming, and I'm ready. So welcome.
You're all good. I don't know. You don't have to be nervous at all. If anyone's nervous, it's me. So thanks for having me on the show.
Oh no, because whenever I am listening to any of your um, presentations on Instagram. So, by the way, Brenden is on Instagram. If you are not already following him, I would highly recommend. Every word, every reel he does, every post he does is so much information that anybody, if you are nervous like me, I get so much valuable information. Like the simple things, I make it complicated than it is. So when I listen to his talk, it's like, oh my God, I was making it complicated. So this is how Brenden would present it. So he is on Instagram. His channel is Master Your Talk, and he's got over 7,000 plus followers. I'm not surprised because he's such a gifted, humble individual. And I met him at Funnel Hacking Live. I think it was last year. And him and Vamsi, who's another beautiful individual, I met them both there. And when Vamsi introduced me to Brenden, and I was like, wow. I mean, your demeanor is it's so humble and calming, and you're like such a gifted individual.
Thanks, Arun. I really appreciate that. I
Yes.
think that I don't really consider myself gifted. I think it's more about, I've just had the humility of learning from people who are smarter than me. Like Bomsy's been coaching me for what, 4 or 5 years on a one-on-one basis. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't even be close to the person I am today. So I think it's about how open-minded or willing to be to learn from other people's perspectives.
That's best said. Yes. How open-minded we are. Yes. And for the listeners, he's also on Facebook. If you're not a person who's on Instagram, you can still connect. His Facebook page is Brenden Kumarasamy. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just
Right.
Master, but I'm not super active on Facebook. So
Okay.
it'd be mostly Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn if people can figure out how to spell my name. Yeah.
I will put the information there in the podcast notes. So, yes, I would highly recommend. So, let me ask you this. I know you said once he was mentoring you, he was one of your mentors. Um, how did you get started? Like, what motivated you to become the communication coach? Because you are awesome at it.
Oh, thanks.
So,
I don't know.
share with me your journey.
Yeah, I appreciate your kindness and your words of appreciation. So yeah, for me, the story behind Master Talk was largely an accident. I don't know. So when I went to business school, I studied in accounting, which is literally the opposite of what I do today. I want to be a numbers guy. That was my mission. That was my drive. So I'm doing this degree to be an accountant, and I start competing in case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age are playing rugby or cricket or baseball or basketball, I wasn't one of those guys. I did presentations competitively. That's how I learned how to speak. So then when I got older, I started coaching all of the other students on how to communicate. I didn't even know you get paid to be a coach. I coached them all for free just to help them win. And I accidentally developed a talent on coaching
Mm.
other people on how to speak. So then 3 years later, after I started coaching, probably this is when I was 22 around, I had the idea for MasterTalk, the YouTube channel, because I thought, oh, all the ideas I'm sharing with the students aren't really available for free online. So I just started making videos. And then as the months went by, I got really fortunate. I met Vamsi 9 months into MasterTalk, and that's when I realized this was a business, not just a hobby.
Wow. Wow. That is so kind of you to make it free for people who, so everybody can access. Wow. Um, so, um, so in the years, so you said you were just, you decided to coach, or you accidentally thought that you have a talent for coaching at the age of 22. So what is that you have achieved so far that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my most proud achievement has nothing to do with my career. It's retiring my mother, right? She
Mm,
worked at a factory for 20 to 30 years on minimum wage, and she raised me with my dad to make it to the level I am today. My parents immigrated from Sri Lanka in the early 90s. I
mm,
was I was lucky enough to be born in a first world country like Canada. So for me, my main goal was how do I increase my level of income in a way where my mom doesn't have to work anymore. That was one of my focal points, my priorities in life, and I had achieved that fairly early in my career. So that's probably the thing I'm the most proud of for sure. And yeah, sure, I've coached some cool people, I've had some accolades, but that's the one that I'm the most happy for. Yeah.
nice. So you've coached some cool people too. Yeah. That, I mean, at your young age, I mean, that is the way you speak, it's so humbling. I'm sure people might have told you, but I just am amazed at how, your demeanor and how you answer and how you talk to people. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Thanks,
So
Aruna.
yeah, I mean, and the way you said, you wanted to help your mom so she doesn't have to work those hours and work hard. That is so beautiful. That
Thank you.
speaks a lot about your character.
I don't think it's really about my character. I think she just did a lot for me. I
Yeah.
really feel like I owed that to her.
Mm.
So and now she lives a cool life. Now she just cooks all day and gardens and does what she wants to do. And I'm glad that I got to give that to her. And she makes my life really easy too. We live together, right? I live with my mom, my sister, right? Because I just wanted to keep everyone in the same house. It made no point for me to live on my own. So just spending time with them every day is just it's a gift for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. And appreciating that, right? You know, not many people appreciate what they have at hand. So appreciation, yeah, goes a long way. The gratitude, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so tell me, who are your mentors and how do you get inspired?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably the product of thousands of different mentors. My perspective ever since I was young. This is probably when I was 20. I discovered Lewis Howes's podcast, The School of Greatness. This is when podcasting was just getting started, so there wasn't really a lot of podcasts out there. And I'm probably one of the few people in his audience that had listened to 700 episodes of the podcast because I would just spend 10 hours a week listening to every single episode. So I would take something new from every single person, and I became the result of all of those people combined. That became my
Mm,
focus. In terms of the people I had access to directly, that had really helped me. Vamsi, of course, was a big mentor of my life. He really supported me and monetizing and seeing the value behind me offering a coaching service and going full time on MasterTalk. Because my past life was a technology consultant. I worked at IBM as a consultant there. I never thought I
mm,
would quit my job. I was getting paid really good money. That's how I retired my mom, and I had a lot of financial outcome from being in that company. So I wasn't looking to leave it. It was a great job. but my calling was much bigger. I could spend my time doing something much more meaningful with my life. So Vamsi in that way became a big mentor. Lewis, of course, is a big mentor of mine as well. The main reason I met Vamsi was through Lewis because I went to Summit of Greatness in Columbus, Ohio, to just
Yeah.
meet him. So he was a big mentor of mine as well. And yeah, those are two that stand out to me for sure.
I missed the summit of greatness this year. So next year,
Yeah,
definitely,
I go every year,
definitely.
so definitely
Yeah.
go for it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, then I'll definitely make it a point. So I'll get to meet you in person
You've
again.
already met me in person though, so
Yes. So what are the words when you said you had a bigger calling? Um, I know you mentioned that you were coaching people for free, and then you realized, that is when you start to master your talk. Um, is there any particular quote that is closer to your heart? Any particular words that you live by?
yeah, for sure. I don't know. One of the quotes that really inspires me that I kind of came up with in my basement that I think is really profound in some way is be insane or be the same. If you want to be like everyone else, that's totally fine. But if you want to live a life that is unique, that is special, that is important, you need to realize most people who are crazy enough to go after their dreams are often crazy people. Like, don't you find it bizarre? I don't know that you're having a conversation with a guy who started a YouTube channel at the age of 22. He started coaching when he was 19. And he started making YouTube videos, not on music, not on pranks, not on comedy, but he made videos on executive communication tips. And then he went to coach some of the largest executives in the world. Yet he still lives in his mother's basement. He has a
That's
nice
okay.
car outside, right? And I do it for money. I just did spend time with people. But he has a nice car outside, nice 2013 Toyota, but he's too scared to drive it, so his sister does it for him. And he's in the top 1% of all listeners on Spotify for Justin Bieber. How does any of this make any sense at all? And that's the point, Aruna. When every
Mhm,
decision in your life makes sense
mhm.
to the only person that it should, which is you, you're probably making the right decisions in life. So I always like to say be insane or be the same.
Be insane or be the same. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Yeah.
Mm, wow. I mean, that is, you shared so much within that short period of time. Wow. It's, yeah, that's what I mean. You're sharing your vulnerability, sharing, being authentic. I think that's what people crave because there's so much fakeness. You know, let me pretend myself like, this big, you know, personality. Or we all have that altered ego, right? Instead of that, just be us ourselves, right? And
Absolutely.
dream big, dream that is, like you said, be insane or be the same.
Exactly.
Wow, that is beautiful. Okay. Um, any challenges that you have undergone that made you who you are?
Absolutely. I don't know. I mean, so many. There's so many different ones. I'll list out a few and you could pick the one that you want to dive into. So the first one around communication was I grew up in a city called Montreal. So for those who don't know, Montreal is a city in Canada where you need to know how to speak French. But it's a language I didn't really know, I don't know. So my whole life, not only did I struggle with communication, I had to present in a language I didn't even know. So that was my reality for most of my life. The second piece that you might not know about me is I have a physical disability in my left arm, right? It's crooked because of a surgery I had when I was younger. So because of that, whenever I present in person, when a lot of people meet me in person, they go, "Oh, like I'm always looking at the person's arm. They're never looking at my face when I give a presentation." And then the third piece, you would think that a communication expert studied in communication. I got a bachelor's degree in accounting. I don't know. It's literally the opposite of what you would think an expert would be. So those are just some of the challenges that I came up with speaking. Yeah.
Uh, I'm not surprised. You are a person who follows your heart and what makes sense for you. And you made the decision to become the communication coach. You are so good at it. And when you mentioned that you grew up in Montreal, speaking French, which is not your first language. Um, I want to dive into that, but I also want to tell you when you mentioned about the physical disability and people looking at your arm, they are not looking. They are looking at it like a disability. They are not looking at who the beautiful person is, and the talents and the gifts they have. And yeah, I can relate to that, because when people look at me and they're like, well, she has scars and she has this, and I was in third degree burns in to 45% of my body, and I had skin grafts, at my when I was like what, 23, 24. So my life shifted, and everything, I have to look at everything in a different perspective, and literally built myself up. So when you say people look at me when I'm talking, they look at my disability, at my, those are people, they have to shift their mindset to, to the bigger thing, that is that the people, whoever is presenting, or whatever activity they are in, look at their gifts rather than looking at their disabilities, what I would say. So I don't look at it as a disability, at all. So tell me, let's dive more into how speaking French, and how that was challenging, and how you overcame.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. And great points and reflection as well. For me, the reason it was so difficult is French is a really difficult language. So when I was in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, I literally understood nothing from what the other students were saying. So it's really hard for me to make friends, especially in kindergarten and first grade when I had a big cast on and I would walk around like
Mm,
this, basically. No
mm,
one really wanted to be friends with me because they didn't know how to talk to me.
mm,
And I had this weird like cast on that I had for the whole year. So it wasn't just like a month long thing. I literally had it the entire 12 months. So
mm,
because of that, there's like maybe a small handful of people who tried to talk to me in English, but they didn't know English either. So that's why it was really challenging for me. So forget about presentations. Like I would literally stand up and like say nothing because I'd be like,
mm,
bonjour, like I would just make a ton of mistakes.
mm,
And but I learned over time. I probably got French right in like second or third grade, but I was still failing in French until high school.
mm. So, how did you overcome it though?
How did I overcome it? That's a good question. I think the way I was able to overcome it was just with age and with time. So what happened was when I was in grade, so I was still scared of communicating in French in a public setting until I got to the college level, right? But in terms of like high school, how I was able to navigate is one in grade two or three, I started getting hang of the language after maybe like 3 years of not understanding a thing. I had like a special tutor and somebody kind of helping me understand French. And then I was able to talk in French, but I wasn't able to deliver properly in French. Like I could talk in it, but I couldn't really present that well. And that lasted until like college. So I only got really good in presentations, probably when I started doing case competitions. That's when I really started to level up. But until then, like until the age of maybe 19, which is young, but relative to my current age, it's actually pretty recent. So I struggled quite a bit actually until I got to college.
Mm. Um, so when you mentioned you had cast when you were in kindergarten, and how, shed some light, like how you overcame when, if you want to share, how you got the injury, you are welcome to. You don't have to. And so how did that make you feel, and how did you overcome that? And then as a teenager, there's so many things going on. You're trying to figure out about yourself, and when you're in college again, you're trying to see who you are, and overcoming that, and then people looking at you like you're a different person. You don't look like another person that normally would look like. And how did you overcome that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to answer anything. So how did the injury come about? So it was a birth accident. So what happened is I was born upside down. So when you're born upside down, you have to either cut the stomach of the mother open, or you have to use a vacuum to pull out the baby. That's kind of the options. So they didn't want to cut open the stomach because it risks the person's life, the mom's life. So instead, what they did is they pulled me out of the vacuum. But like one in every thousand like operations, there's a mistake in the vacuum, and I just happened to be that one in a thousand. So when my I got pulled out, my left arm dislocated. That's why. my arm is crooked. So that's the reason for the injury. In terms of how I felt, I mean, definitely when I was growing up, like it's really weird, right? I probably had like two friends, and I think I got a little lucky there because I was born in Canada. The kids are nice, so even if they didn't understand anything, I was able to overcome it. There's one story that I'll tell you as to why it never really bothered me later in life. So early in my life, it was a big bother, but later it didn't really bother me. It only bothered me with my family. So the people around me. And the reason is because they always said, "Oh, you have this problem. So sorry you had to go through this." Whereas when I went to school,
Mm-hmm.
nobody really talked about it. Nobody really cared. Like they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't come up to me and go like, "Hey, what happened to your arm?" They would just treat me like everybody else. And there's this
Mm-hmm.
one guy I remember. I was in grade 7 and I was playing billiards with him. It's like you take a stick and you're like hitting. It's like pool. It is pool. And the guy didn't have an arm. Like he had one arm, so he had like you could only he only had like 1/4 of an arm, and nobody was asking a question. He was just playing pool and kill, like he was just living his life. And I just went,
Yes.
and I think perspective really made me realize that I don't really have a problem. I was like, well, I got like the arm works, like I could use it. Like it's not like I have that big of a problem. And then today, I think my answer would be I think the universe made my left arm crooked on purpose so that my clients and the people that meet me in life can never use their life as an excuse to never be a great speaker, right? So like for example, like the people I work with are much older than I am. I don't know, right? They're in their 40s, they're in their 50s, they're executives of big companies, they have their own businesses. And I think the reason why they resonate so much with me and what I tell them all the time is like, okay, yeah, I'm younger than you. Yeah, I don't have as much experience than you, but I'm posting every week on YouTube, and I'm posting every day on Instagram, and I'm posting every day on LinkedIn. I have a pretty decent sized business, and I'm sending video messages. What's your excuse? You don't have a crooked left arm. You don't have a second language in English. And that really stumps them because they go, "You're right, Brendan, because you're doing all of this, and I ain't doing anything. So I better get my things together." So yeah, I think it's more inspiring now.
Wow. Oh my God. Yes. Oh my God. I am, yeah, this is the moment. Nice, very nice. Thank you so much for sharing. Because yeah, some people look at it as a disability, but unless we look at it as a disability and holding us back, then that's the mindset issue. So thanks for bringing that up. um, it's amazing, amazing. I'm sure my listeners would be as excited as I am. Oh, thank you for sharing. So now that you've said that, any regrets at all you have?
Regrets. I don't really have that many regrets. I don't know. And I think the reason is because I've always tried living my life in a way that best optimizes for my life. And I'll tell you why. There's a great framework that Jeff Bezos from Amazon thought of when he quit his, because he had a really successful job before he started Amazon as a company. And he calls it the regret minimization framework. So the regret minimization framework is, let's assume you're 85 years old today on your rocking chair. What would you regret the most not doing? And every time I asked myself that question, I actually took action. Like for example, like MasterTalk, I had a very successful job at IBM. I was the first person to graduate with a university degree in my family. So like for me, quitting my day job was like the stupidest thing ever. Like why would I do that? So just quitting my job to do MasterTalk and cutting my salary at the time by like 70% was crazy, right? So that's one piece. But it was me acknowledging the fact that I don't have a lot of time on Earth. So I didn't regret that because I ended up doing the thing. Every girl that I wanted to ask out, I'd asked out, right? So that's that. My family, right? I retired my mom, so now in the future, whenever she passes, hopefully it's in a long time, like in 50 years, I can look back and say like because of the actions I took in my life, I was able to retire fairly early. So I don't think I have that many regrets. And I think the reason why is because I try and think about what is the regrets that future me might have and how do I solve for those regrets today. So I'll give you an example. Why do I still live with my mother? Right? That's a question I rarely get asked. And the reason's really simple. Because oftentimes when you reach your mid 20s, late 20s, you don't spend time with your parents anymore. Because you move out, you want independence, you want to be alone, you want to raise your own families. And then you only realize at the end of their life that, oh my God, like they're sick now. What's happening? Like I'm not spending that much time with them. And I know myself really well, and I'm a workaholic. Like I'm always working. Like, I give a workshop today, I had a bunch of other interviews today. Like I'm always working. So I knew in my personality, because that's how I'm wired, that if I don't live at my home, I'll never see my mom. Like I know that. So I'd rather just live with her, right? So that's just a conscious decision I made. So I always ask myself, what would 10-year-old version Brenden do differently? 10 years older than me. So what would 36-year-old Brenden do? What would 37-year-old Brenden? And now I think one of the future regrets is, yeah, you could focus on the business, but when you get to your early 30s to late 20s, you should probably get married and have kids because you don't want to be a multimillionaire and be alone with nothing to stand for. So you have to always keep proactively thinking about that.
Beautifully said. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, what is the best business advice you received? It can be best business advice or best, personal life advice that you received.
Right. So I'll flip it a little bit. I'll
Sure.
give advice that I feel is rarely talked about, which is why I believe most people are not equipped for entrepreneurship. The
Mm,
reason is because entrepreneurship requires a very unique quality that I think most human beings have trouble possessing and getting around. And that is the ability and willingness to constantly change what they believe is true. So
mm,
whenever we have a belief as a human being, whether it's religious, political, whether it's related to our business, a lot of us as we get older, we get really caught up in the idea that that will always be true. But if you have that in in business, you will die in business because business is constantly evolving. Let me give you an example. Like 10 years ago, people thought social media was stupid. Oh, you should never be on social media. It makes no sense. Like I get all my business through calling people and word of mouth, right? But Gary Vee understood that, hey, if you're not on social media, like you're gonna lose. But a lot of people got stuck in their ways, and a lot of businesses died. But the ones who took advantage of social media really rose to the top. Same thing with artificial intelligence now. Now a lot of people are going, oh, AI is going nowhere. This is nothing. Whereas the people who are more proactive is like, okay, how is this going to disrupt my industry? How can I leverage this tool more effectively? Podcasting too. People thought podcasting was ridiculous, like literally 5, 10 years ago, and now it's all the craze. So what's my advice? My advice for any aspiring business owner is to do three things before you even start a business. Because most businesses fail statistically. So I always like to give advice to the majority. Number one is get a high paying job. I call this side hustling comfortably. I'm a really unique type of entrepreneur, and I don't mean that in a good or a bad way, where I never wanted to be a business owner. So I literally said, like, nah, I want to work at IBM, I want to be a consultant. But what happened was because I was already really good at what I was doing, when it went back to when I went and I quit my job, I was able to replace my income quickly because the market is the market. So the value that you deliver, if you're really good, you'll get paid a lot of money, you'll do well. But if you're not good at what you do, the opposite is also true. Like if you came to my workshop earlier today, oh my God, this guy is not great at communication. There's no business. Like nobody would become my client. I would make $0, right? And I would impact nobody. So that's the first piece. Try and find a job that pays a significant amount of income that you'd be love doing anyways. I call this side hustling comfortably. The second piece of advice I have is to save up 6 to 9 months of emergency money for anything that happens. And the reason I'm such a big believer in this is if you can't save money while you're holding a job, how are you supposed to save money as an entrepreneur? If you can't bring those habits in your job, you're going to bring those bad habits into the business. You're going to spend things on items and ideas that you shouldn't be spending time on. And the third one, that's pretty obvious, I don't know, but nobody does, is make money. Like I had replaced 40% of my income before I quit my job. I think people take too much risk in their businesses.
mm. Wow. Okay. That is so much value is in those three tips that you gave. Um, okay. Um, I know when I attended your masterclass, I just loved every piece of it. You made it so much fun. Tell me a little bit about that.
For sure, I don't know. Honestly, to keep things simple, the secret behind the workshop is it's my 90th time delivering the same content. So every workshop, literally, in a mid-April, in late April, in May, it's literally the same workshop over and over and over again. It's just a lot of people, they like attending 5 times, 10 times because there's so much information that they miss a lot of things. So they come again to learn it. But it's always the same workshop. And that's really the key, I think, that a lot of people miss in delivery is that the best speakers in the world, Tony Robbins, Brene Brown, Russell Brunson, it doesn't matter who, they say the same thing over and over and over and over again. Like if Tony Robbins doesn't say like, "Oh, this unleashed the power within. I'm going to talk about porcupines for 3 days." No, no, it's literally the same event that he's been hosting for 45 years. Imagine that, I don't know. Like 40 to 45 years, Tony's been doing the exact same event in the exact same format, which is wild, but there's a lesson there. And the lesson is if we change our content too much, we'll never get better at delivery. So for me, it's about saying master your content, but once you know what you're talking about and it comes easily, like now I don't think about my content in my workshop anymore. So I
Mm,
spend 80% of my time on the delivery. Hey, am I engaging with the chat? Am I calling people by name? Am I making it more interactive? Am I telling jokes at the right moments? Am I telling stories, analogies? But that stuff is seasoning on the food.
mm.
You need to bake the food first. You need to cook that base first and make sure the content is good. And then when your content is solid, then you start making the delivery much better.
Wow. The part I loved so many parts of it. The part I loved is, oh man, I have to think. Two things I loved. Um, the things you talked about, do these things, take time each day, like even if it is 10, 15 minutes, take time each day to focus on that particular skill. I love that. The reason is, as entrepreneurs, when you're wearing multiple hats, I feel like, oh my God, if I sit down and do this, I have to do this for an hour. I did that even when I was writing the book and I drew a blank. I followed what my mentor said, made post-it notes and whatnot, followed that. And then when I was sitting down to write, it just was blank. And then when I was talking to the mentor was like, what are you doing? Or are you trying to write for like an hour or 2 hours? I said, yes. As though he read my mind. I'm like, exactly. He's like, no, just take 15 minutes each day. And I was like, that is amazing, because then the pressure is off my shoulder. And it's like, I can do 15 minutes. I can sneak it in, I can do it when after my lunch or dinner or whatnot. 15 minutes is doable. So then once I'm like, that pressure is off, I'm saying I finished 8 pages in an hour and a half. The words just flowed. So the reason why I liked that when you mentioned is this, I heard the same content, the same message, 15 minutes. I was like, okay, so there's, that's the secret, right? 15 minutes, I can do that. And the other part is, so I have to tell this to the listeners. If you haven't attended Brendan's masterclass, it's completely free. Please go ahead and I'll post the information, Brendan's website, or the information that has when he's having the classes. Please do. You will love it. There's at least 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 information that you will take away, and it'll make a huge difference. That's how I felt. And the second thing I loved is the word you said, pick a random word, pick a random word and speak. And I was like, oh my God, that's like challenging for me. At the same time, it's like, let's try it, and it's only what you said, 30 seconds. So I'm like, 30 seconds, I'm going to try it. But I also would want to say to the listeners, this is what I took away. No matter how many advice we hear from Tony Robbins or Brenden or Dean Graziosi or whoever you're listening to, right? Or Jay Shetty, then whatever you're listening, if you're not applying and implementing, it is so much of a waste. You know, that's how I felt, because I've been there where I'm like, oh my God, this is wonderful information. And I'm writing it down. And then after that, I file it away, the paper, and it's out of mind, out of sight. And it's like not there. So I'm like, even if I wrote down 10, I'm going to take one or two or three. Even if I just implement one, then that makes me feel like I put it into action. So, the listeners, please, I highly recommend attending at least one of Brendan's classes, and you will come away with so much valuable nuggets. Okay, now that I said that, um, let's see. And do you have um, time on your calendar? Are you taking people to coach? And what are you coaching? I know you're coaching about communication. Tell me a little bit about how effective or how it is necessary and significant in every part of life, whether it is relationship, like husband and wife relationship, girlfriend boyfriend relationship, or boss employee relationship, or as an entrepreneur, or as a coach, or a parent talking to the kid, or kid talking to the parent. Is there any age limit, and why is the communication significant?
Absolutely, Arun. It's a great question. For me, communication is important because it improves the quality of our life, right? That's why I call communication the accelerant of dreams. Doesn't matter what the dream is, communication helps you accelerate that outcome, accelerate what you want in your life. And that could be a multitude of different things. It could be growing a business. If you want to grow your business and you know how to speak, you go on a stage and close 30 clients in like an hour or 30 phone calls in an hour instead of going to everybody individually and talking to them. That's one piece. Another benefit to communication is, to your point, the way we talk to our families, the way that we show up for them, being a better mother for our children, being a better dad for our kids, being a better husband, a better wife for the people that we surround ourselves with. Because communication is the number one piece to relationship management too. But it's also being a better friend, being a better human being. It's the way that we show up for the people around us in our lives. That's why, for me, communication impacts every area of our life. That's why the question I always like to ask for people to think about is, how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? How would your life change if you're an exceptional communicator? If you really reflect on that question, you'll realize, like, I want to grow my business. I want to get my next promotion at work. I want to show up as a better parent to my kids. And when you find that burning desire to create that transformation for yourself, that's what really creates the results.
How would your life change if you are an exceptional communicator? Wow, that's a self-reflection question. Somebody like me, I would just sit there and just write and see what comes up.
For sure.
Just circle the words that resonates with me. That's a wonderful one. So yeah, going back to that other part of my question. I know I asking you a long question. Are you accepting people? So they're approaching you so you can coach them.
You got it. So I intake a handful of clients every single year to work with them personally. So for me, it's more about saying, like, the free information that's for the world, right? I don't know, like, I want everybody to watch my YouTube videos, I want everyone to come to my free training. But then there's a small percentage of that community who are high level entrepreneurs, executives who go like, I don't want to watch these videos. So a lot of my clients, they don't really watch a lot of my content, right? They'll watch one or two, but they're successful, so they'll just go like, I don't want to spend 4 hours watching him on a podcast. I just want to hire him directly so that he can hold my hand and get me results faster. So for me, it's not like there's an advantage in information. It's more about saying, I share all the information for free, but I force you to do it like a personal trainer would. So like a lot of my clients will do 100 random word exercises in like 2 weeks, right? Because I'm pushing them and saying like, let's get the result. So they don't wait 6 months. So the benefit of coaching is it speeds up time. That's really the key. Is a lot of people use their money to speed up time. So that's why you were at Funnel Hacking Live, right? Because why sit around and figure it out when Russell can just curate all the best speakers, and I just sit there and I just implement and I just make way more than what I spent on the ticket.
Okay, beautiful. And you said you are accepting only few per year. And how long is the coaching program? Once um, you know, that you find are the best people to coach, and if it is the right fit, that it has to be right fit for both the sides. Once you do that, how long is the coaching time? Does it vary?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. So the first program is called Communication Accelerator. So it's a 3 month process. I only start 4 groups every year, so once every quarter. So my first one was in January, the next one's in April. After that, it's July, then it's October, and that's it. And I intake 25 clients for each of those groups. I only intake 100 to 150 clients in every given year. And how that program works is we focus on three main areas of communication: presentation mastery, leadership mastery, and relationship building mastery. So a lot of the people I work with, they make a lot of basic mistakes with their comms. They do a lot when they speak. Their pacing is a little bit too fast. I love the self-awareness, right? It's the vocal tones is too monotone. They're not looking at the camera lens all the time when they're speaking online. So the first 4 weeks, I'm coaching people privately in a very small group. We're talking like 10 people, 15 people, 20 people, 25 people. That's it. And I'm coaching them almost on a one-on-one basis to get rid of all that stuff. So that's the first piece. The second piece is getting them more confident for the person they want to become. That's leadership mastery. So how do we answer questions in a boardroom, on a sales call, on a podcast, so that we convey command, authority, and exceptionalism in the way we communicate our ideas? So there's a big difference in answering a question on a podcast like this. Yeah, I don't know. So that's what I'm thinking, and versus having the conviction that I have in my voice whenever I share ideas. So I drill clients on hundreds of these questions, but people could do this on their own too. Coaching just speeds that up. And then the third piece is relationship building mastery. How do you make small talk? How do you talk to people in a way where they leave thinking that, wow, this person is so cool, I need to be around their energy? So that's the program.
Beautiful. Wow, we covered all the three: presentation mastery, leadership mastery, relationship building mastery. Wow. So 3 months, huh?
You got it. And then after the 3 month process is over, we handpick the best students from every group, and then we have a 1 year mastermind for the best people. So this is like an elite group to be the best in the world at speaking instead of just being a top 1%.
1 year mastermind. Okay. Beautiful. So next one is coming up in April. For those who are interested, um, after listening to Brendan's master class, then the next one is coming up, he says, in April. Okay. I know I want to respect your time. Let me ask you this. What is one thing that others value that you don't value anymore?
What's something that other people value that I don't value anymore? I would say that's an excellent question, by the way. I don't know that I need to spend more time thinking about because I'm sure I'd come up with a better answer. But I would say for now, the biggest thing is how we spend our time. So a lot of people, they'll use their time on unnecessary things. So for example, or they'll buy unnecessary things, right? Buying shoes that they don't need, or expensive cars. Like I could buy a nice car now if I wanted to. I just don't care. Like I'd rather just own a nice Toyota and have excess cash that I can reinvest into the business so I can leverage the capital better. So, but I think a lot of people, we don't optimize our time appropriately. We just follow what other people want us to do with our time. Okay, I should get a job, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with getting a job. But then after I should go to this wedding, right? Then after I should spend my time at a bar with my friends. And then I wish I go to this event. Instead of really taking the time to go, what is actually the best use of my time? Like for example, let's say this call. This is a very good use of my time because I'm impacting you and the people that listen to this podcast. But if it's like, I don't know, just going to some random party to go meet people, like I'm probably not that interested, right? So I think what I value that a lot, like, or what other people don't value that I value a lot, is really thinking of my time as really, really precious and how to leverage and allocate that as best as possible.
Thank you. How would you define that you are aligned with your dharma, your purpose?
Yeah, for me, Aruna, Dharma and spirituality, I still have to figure that out because I'm still early in that journey.
Purpose, your
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah, for sure. So for me, success comes down to three different things. So there's three parts to success for me. The first one is making a conscious decision with ourselves to find our gift, even if we don't know what the gift is. So even if we have no clue, like even if you had asked me 5 years ago what my gift was, I wouldn't have known. Like just 5 years ago, not like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, for sure, I didn't know, but 5 years ago, if you had talked to me, I was like, no, I don't know, speaking, coaching, what are you talking about? I just want to work a job and be successful in my career. So we might not know what the gift is, but the first step to greatness, to success, to finding a purpose is make a conscious decision to say, one day I'm going to find a purpose. So even back then, even if I didn't have it, I still said, I'm going to save up all the money that I make at IBM. I'm going to donate to some charities. And if I never forget my purpose, then I'll help Scott Harrison build charity water and we'll help gay people gain access to clean water, right? So I never really had a purpose, but I said, okay, I'll do that. The second piece is if you ever find your purpose, and there's ways of doing this, but if you find it, really maximize it in the service of other people, right? So let's say in my case, I got lucky in life. I found it really early. So now that I know what it is, which is to democratize the world's information of communication, become this generation's Dale Carnegie, right? That's my mission. So how do I exploit that at the max in the service of other people, right? And then the last piece, right, which is not really well understood. The third piece to success, and I don't believe you're successful if you don't do the third thing. The third thing is once you find your gift, create the space for other people to find theirs. So I'll repeat that again. When you find your gift and you exploit and you're super happy and you've served other people, you can't just stop there. It's not enough. You have to create a space for other people to find their gift. So once you do that and you're helping other people find their gift, I think that's what moves society forward.
That means so much to me, and I'm sure it connected with everybody who's listening. That is so true, though. even most of us don't think at it that way. Once the gift is found, okay, I found my purpose. I'm going to live it, and that's it. But I feel like you said, create the space so the others can find their gift. And the way you are doing it, where you're offering the YouTube channel so people can use those tools and implement it and, progress so they can communicate better in wherever they are, whether they are at work, whether they are in the relationship, wherever they are, because like you said, communication is the accelerant. So, I'm just so blessed, I should say, to have this conversation. And even though you are so young and the words you spoke are so humbling, and I wish you all the best so you can touch so many more millions and billions and trillions and whatever in ins of people. And I'm sure everybody will get inspired by the actions you take, by the speeches you give. You are touching so many individuals, and I wish you all the best. And anything that I missed, that you want to address?
I mean, you did a great job with this interview. I don't know, but I would close with just going back to that question. How would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? A lot of people hear that question, but they don't implement the question. So I encourage all of you to book that 50 minutes in your calendar today, later after you've listened to this episode, and just reflect on, how would my life change? Because a lot of communication is so focused on fear. It's focused on, ugh, I don't want to do this, on the stress and the anxiety. And I always hated that energy around communication. That's why for me, it's all about hope. It's about inspiration. It's about saying like, wow, like if we became great speakers, it's not about being a TED speaker. It's not about being the next Tony Robbins. It's about saying like, wow, I should really work on this because it'll improve the quality of my life.
Well said. Thank you so much for your wonderful time. I enjoyed it. I'm sure my listeners enjoy it as well. And all the listeners out there, please, after you listen to it, if you can take a few seconds and just post it, what you got out of this, listening to this episode, I would truly appreciate. And thank you again for your time, Brenden. Wish you all the best so you can make more impact touching more people.
Of course, I don't know. Thanks for having me.